party in this country must operate along democratic lines, respect in consonance with the Constitution and existing laws. When you have this arrangement that has been lifted and put right in the NDC Constitution, why can't people ask for accountability? But you see, the question accountability is narrowly interpreted by people to think about finance, profit and loss. That is not it. Political accountability is vertical and horizontal. That you account down to the grassroots and account across.
Accounting for what exactly?
Accounting for your stewardship. And the reason why issues of accountability is being raised, people don't know today what exactly are the collated figures from 2020 elections. I can show you many more. People don't know. You see, this is not the first time that organizational aspects are taking place in the NDC. There was the Obeta Samuel Committee each year. I was a member. We went around this country when we went to opposition in 2000 on reorganization. A report was done. Recommendations were made. I don't know how many of them were implemented. Kam Kwesi Boche's committee, detailed recommendations were made. I don't know how many of them. And holding a party office is one of succession and continuity. People are asking, you are going for another round or a third round of reorganization of the party. Can you tell us what has happened since the Obeta Samuel's reorganization, the Kwesi Boche's recommendations? How many of them have you implemented? For all you know, it is a failure, possible failure, of implementing those recommendations that you find yourself needing to have another reorganization. This is the context.
Suleimana, once again, I start with you. This is Dr. Benjamin Kumbo at a meeting of cadres on the same day at the weekend as the leadership of the NDC were also holding a meeting in the Volta region, whilst the cadres were meeting in Tema. What did he say wrong? Did he make demands that should not be made? And what's wrong? What do you see is wrong with what he had to ask?
Well, Samson, I have been following the conversations and the debates around the NDC's processes of reorganization in the last couple of weeks. And I think that someone like Dr. Ben Kumbo is a very respected person. I think even outside the party, growing up, he was somebody that, even in Parliament, you listen to him, his arguments and all of that. And he's one person that you would be sure that he would make a lot of sense at all times. With particular reference to what has been said, I think people may have legitimate concerns as to why at the time when the party leadership decides that they are holding a forum to do introspection, to look at what went wrong, what went right, then you have other persons within the party also organizing another forum to basically do the same thing in terms of highlighting what the deficits have been and what the challenges are. But I think that as a political party, people need to be tolerant, because politics, I believe, is all about diversity of views and diversity of opinions. It doesn't matter who says what. What is important is the value of what they say and the weight of what people say. And so I would have been expecting people in the NDC to take in good faith what people like what people like Dr. Ben Kumbo, people like Abu Dhabi, and so on and so forth have been saying in the last couple of days. However, to look at it holistically, my view is that the NDC has been struggling with leadership crisis over the years. I don't think that leadership is just about electing who is a flag bearer, who is chairman, who is general secretary, and so on and so forth, and just saying that, look, these are our leaders. It is about what these people do that then reflect whether they are leaders or not. And I think that, in my view, the NDC has been lacking that leadership that is required to put the party where it has to be. Yes, they've had former President Mahama lead the party and so on and so forth. But who is it that rallies the party together? Who is it that provides that direction and vision for the party? I think in the early days of the party, people looked up to General Rawlings and whatever vision he had, during the formation, the philosophies of accountability, transparency, probity, and so on and so forth, being a social democratic oriented party, and all of that. Today, as we speak, you talk to a lot of people and they will tell you, look, the NDC says it's a social democratic party. But if you look at between the MPP and the NDC, and the MPP says they are on the other side, but which political party, for example, has been introducing the kinds of things that you would expect from a social-oriented political party? And if it is not the case that the MPP perhaps has been better at that, it's almost at par in terms of social interventions and all of that. So why is it that the party may have lost that whole philosophy that it says it stands for? And I believe that growing up as a child, some of the interventions that the Rawlings-led NDC put in place. And I always say that if you take the North, for example, it was the Rawlings regime that really did a lot of transformation in the North. And it's understandable because if the party says it's a social-oriented political party, it should be a party that stands for those who are struggling, those who don't have or the have-nots, as they say it. But over the years, from Mills to Mahama and till date, as Dr. Kumbo was saying, I know, and I've heard from a lot of NDC leaders who say that in the 2016 election, there was no collation. Nobody really collated the results. And so at the time when Koku Anyidoho was saying that we are in a comfortable lead, there was nothing to show that they were in a lead or were behind. And it is surprising that 2020 elections, given what happened in 2016, the fact that the party, was defeated by close to 1 million votes, the expectation would have been that they would have put their house in order, and this time around, track and trail and make sure that during the elections, if it's about the collation of the pink sheets, everything is done properly. And by now, the NDC wouldn't just be telling us that, oh, we have it, but they would have been showing it to us. I've been reading a group that says, look, we want the party to show us the collation sheets or their collated figures. If you look at what happened at the Supreme Court, look at that versus what the MPP did in 2012, and you will see a vast difference in terms of preparation, in terms of, assembling materials together and all of that. This time around, there was nothing shown in terms of pink sheets and discrepancies in the calculation, and yet we are told there was, what is it called? Figures were added to some candidates and figures were deducted in some candidates, vote padding, they call it. We only hear people say it. We only read about what people have said, and yet there is no evidence to. I have not seen a single, document that says this is from Manshia North or Savelugu or Nantong, where the NDC got this, MPP got that. All that were being shared eventually on social media ended up being fake. So how do we take a party like that serious? And as I keep saying, where is the leadership? I was surprised, for example, what the communications officer of the party did, Sami Jamfi, and the attack, the scathing attack he launched on the Speaker of Parliament and the leadership, and in fact, the entire parliamentary caucus of the party. The question I asked myself is, if this person understands, for example, the role of the Speaker, how do you attack the Speaker for the approval given to the ministers who were nominated? What is the Speaker's role? Or was it the case that because he is a member of the NDC, the expectation was that he should do whatever magic it takes to get the NDC side to disapprove these ministerial nominees? So I think what is happening in the NDC for the last few weeks, and in fact, not the last few weeks, I think over the last years, is a complete show of lack of leadership. And I am not surprised to see what is going on. I can only hope, in the interest of our nation, in the interest of stability, that they are able to put their house in order, mobilize, so that at least we wouldn't end up having a situation of having a one-party state, so that we continue to have, at least if not multi-party, we would have the dual parties being able to compete fairly, and as and when Ghanaians feel one party is disappointed.
You hear Dr. Kumbo say that he believes that John Mahama appears to be the future of the party. However, he should not be projected, and the people should not continue to behave as though they are at the point of selecting a leader and that there is no room for any other leader. The question some have asked is, if that is his belief, that John Mahama is the party's, formidable, candidate going into the future, why should he be worried about what he talks about? That people should not shoot ahead of themselves and not behave as if nobody else should be given the opportunity to contest when the time comes. Why will that be necessary?
Well, first of all, even if Ben Kumbo had said that John Mahama would not be the best candidate, should that be grounds for him to be subjected to the kinds of attacks that he's been subjected to from persons like Edua Sare, who has been an MP before, and therefore you would expect that he understands quite fairly the dynamics in politics. And again, for a party like the NDC that has governed this country, 2 terms, two separate 2 terms, 2000 under Rawlings and then Mills, Mahama. So if you put it together, about 16 years. And it will be surprising for party members to act as though, look, over the years, we have only had somebody who has become vice president and subsequently president. And for us, he is the only person who can lead this party. Again, that will be an admission of a major failure of lack of grooming within the party. And many of us ask, indeed, if you were to say it is not Mahama who should lead the party, who is the other person who has demonstrated that kind of national appeal, leadership qualities, and so on and so forth, that you would say, look, even if Mahama were to be out today, this person is a natural leader for the NDC. I don't see anyone at this stage. And so I think what is happening in terms of the diversity of opinion, in terms of the expressions that Kumbo and others are putting out, should be seen as something in the interest of the party.
Okay,
rather than those who are doing hero worshipping, Muhammad is, and praise singing and all of that. And as Ben Kumbo said, craving for attention by just, praising Mahama and all of that. Perhaps they are the ones who will destroy the party if they are not halted.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I'm being informed that the Herbert Crapper that you suggested was from Oti. May not be from Oti, but rather from Botoku in the North Dai district of the Volta region. So he's not from Oti, according to some information I'm getting here. Yeah, so Oti has not been represented in the government by way of ministerial appointments so far. And then the Ghana Education Services, Sandra Chum tells me that Suini may have made a suggestion that there has been another postponement of SHS3 reopening to the 28th. She says no. Any such information going around is not true. The reopening for them is for the 5th of May, and it has not changed. Thank you. Now,
good for the clarification.
Right. So, Suini, what is going on? If you listen to Kumbo, why is he coming under such vitriolic attack from the party? And I'll tell you, to be sincere with you, you may have seen me make a post about it, that I am shocked that even persons who are deemed to be matured in the NDC have joined, faceless guys on Facebook to attack him and actually call his PhD into question. I'm shocked that this will happen. that the Ben Kumbo, like he said, all of us will admit, it's not only an asset to NDC, it's a national asset. And if you have such a storehouse, intellectual storehouse, powerhouse, who is an elder of your party, and he makes this statement, what's wrong with it?
Well, some of those reactions, I agree with you, have been very irresponsible. Not to justify, but that is how it has always been with all political parties undergoing this phase. You get very senior members, critical thinkers, you know, coming under such barrage of attacks. And like I said, not to justify, but just to state that it is not only restricted.
Why not debate the issue,
NDC,
but insult him?
And
you have heard him say that he's enjoying the insult. I mean, that's sarcastic.
That's sad. That's very sad. I mean, I agree with you that Dr. Kumbo is a stalwart, not just for the NDC, but for Ghana. And
perhaps internationally.
It's just a joy listening to him sometimes. The dexterity, the depth, you know, of his arguments and his presentations, you know, just leaves you out. And it's unfortunate that he has to come under such barrage.
So what happens to people? But you see, people, let me use it this way, maybe for want of better expression. People who may not be qualified to hold his many books that he carries around, insulting him and thinking that that is fine. What should happen?
Our politics is made up of all kinds of people. And like I said, I mean, you remember Dr. Wilkubrobe and the things that they said about him. We all know his contribution to Ghana. And it happens in the PNC, it happens in the CPP. It is not right. And I'm sure because Dr. Kumbo has lived through it, that is why he's taking it the way he's taking it, in a very sarcastic manner. But you see, Samson, you asked about what is happening. At the risk of being misunderstood, I think that there's the need for many people in the NDC to begin to soberly reflect on what is happening by, first of all, listening to each other to understand each other and not to react to each other. We must be listening to each other to understand each other, because, Samson, I have seen two forces that serve as noise in the communication. And if you study communication, you understand what noise does to communication. It distorts, you know, information. And so I see two forces that are at play, and those forces are serving as noise in the very necessary communication that is taking place, because we need that conversation now. We need that conversation. So first, you have a group of people who are seeking to settle personal scores, or are determined to, you know, attack certain personalities and destroy their image. You have them for whatever reason you cannot explain. And so those who want a genuine conversation, and I believe Dr. Kumbo falls in that category, those who want a genuine conversation that will lead to progress in the party must be wary of the people who are up to no good associating with them. Because there are those people who are using their genuine call for conversation, for such a necessary conversation, to target certain personalities and derogatorily, to target them derogatorily, and to just tarnish their image for their own personal reasons. So those people who want that genuine conversation to take place must be wary of such people, because in the process, those people affect the message that they seek to, you know, convey by their association with those people. I don't want to mention names, but anybody who has been listening and observing what is going on will know the people I'm talking about, because in the party, they are known. Then that's the first force. Then you have the second force. The second force is also made up of people who seek to hide their inefficiencies and low-level contribution to party progress in the professed love of John Mahama. They seek to hide their inefficiencies and incompetence and very low contribution to party growth in their professed love of John Mahama.
My question is,
so you see,
what is
if you do not,
what is happening from the side of leadership? Because if you have, leaders in the party like Ade Koka, regional chairman, if you have Edua Sare, who is speaking all the time, people are listening. If you have this group of people at this level, take on the man, and they are not discussing the issue. They relegate the issue to the background, and they are attacking his person.
So, Samson, don't let us also turn this discussion into discussing those personalities. Let's discuss the issues.
So what should happen to those people?
So the issues are what I am picking out one by one. When you are listening to people contributing to this very necessary conversation, listen to them on the basis of whether or not they want a genuine conversation, or they see the conversation as an opportunity to attack people they have personal scores with, or they are seeking to hide their inefficiencies and incompetence in a so-called professed love for the former flag bearer and former president. We all love President Mahama, and the grassroots continue to call for, his return. It is a decision he, as a person, I know, has not even gotten to even thinking about. But there's a need for the party to be reorganized so that whoever emerges eventually as the flag bearer, be it President Mahama or not, the party would have been put in shape good enough not to repeat the mistakes of either 2016 or 2020. That is why that conversation is necessary. But I'm saying that if we are going to have this conversation, those who want that genuine conversation need to be wary of associating with people who are up to no good, who just see this as an opportunity to, black paint or throw black paint at certain personalities like President Mahama and make him look bad and not qualified to lead. You must be careful of those people associating with you, because they will make people think that you are part of a certain agenda. And you must also be careful with those who have been given leadership roles in the past, either as branch executives or constituency executives or even national executives, but have not been able to contribute what is required for the party to grow, but think the only way they can protect their positions is to say they are fighting for President Mahama, or they are showing their love for President Mahama. You have to listen and understand and distinguish, these two forces who will not contribute to a genuine conversation that will lead to party
on
growth.
The back of what Suhini talks about, that even President Mahama has not yet made that decision. Do you sincerely think that the atmosphere with which you gauge the NDC now, people can dare to say that someone else other than Mahama should be on the NDC's ticket 2024? And shouldn't that be a concern for a party that the Constitution requires or to operate with internal democracy?
If you could just allow me so that I'll help Gary. You see, what is happening now, which is even different, and for me, most encouraging, is the fact that for the first time after an election, I think I stand to be corrected, but it's the first time after an election that you have the party undertaking a retreat that was not meant to elect officers. Over the years, that has been the bane of the party reorganization. Most reorganization has been done on elections. So you have a party conference or congress, and the focus is just to elect officers. But the whole retreat, for example, which was first conducted between members of parliament and party leadership, and then the second one done between national party executives and regional executives with some leadership in parliament, hasn't happened before.
All right.
So for me, it is a new beginning. It is a new way of doing things, and I hope that all those who are concerned about the fortunes of the party will find the appropriate vehicle to contribute ideas that will make the party more attractive.
So Gary, do you say, is it helpful, the current atmosphere that we can all testify to, that leaders within the party are preaching Mahama, and so people may even be scared to want to dare suggest that anybody other than Mahama should be there? Is that helpful to the party?
Something. Politically, it will be naive sitting here to think that if President Mahama is alive, come 2024, NDC will present any candidate other than President Mahama. It will be naive. It will be naive. We know very well that if essentially President Mahama is well, okay, is in good shape, mentally he's okay, NDC will have no other candidate to present in 2024 than he himself. Look, let me tell you, the whole Supreme Court petition that was filed was all an attempt to make President Mahama relevant in the political terrain. I believe Dr. Benjamin Kumbo. What did he say? He said they need some form of evaluation. They need some form of accountability. Okay? Now, he was very clear and very succinct. He said it doesn't mean profit and loss account. They want leadership to account for at least even how the elections even went. When they went to court, they said that they won the elections. Now they went to court, they didn't present their counter numbers to the court to show to that indeed they actually won the elections. What is wrong about what he said? He said, I'm a lawyer. I am saying that if you are going to court and then you say that you have won the election, you must present your counter numbers to the court. What is wrong about what he said?
But he explains that he, as a lawyer and in that stature, he understands the legal strategy for the case.
Yes.
But he's concerned about the many people in the grassroots who are asking them every day, you said you had won, where are the figures?
That is the point. Because, you see, before even the Mama went to court, there was a clarion call in the whole country that he won the elections. And MPs, including my brother Suhini sitting here, they all work from Parliament in a very fit and exercise mode to go to EC, that they won the elections. There were demonstrations across the country that they won the elections. In fact, at a point in time, I said, if they actually won the elections, is there now a dispute between what EC is declaring and what NDC has collated? Now we are even being told that 2016 there was no collation. 2020 there was no collation. Even if there was collation, where is your collated figure? What is wrong about what Dr. Kumbu has said?
The chairman and the director of elections say anybody who suggests they didn't do a collation is wrong. Elvis Efri suggests that on the 8th of December, they had their figures.
So if they had their figures, where were the figures when they went to court? And when they started witness wanted the witness box, and then was asked, what number did you obtain? If you said nobody won, what did you get? And my Lord, we didn't bring our numbers here. You see, if we do a thing like this, and then a figure like Dr. Benjamin Kumbo, a statesman, then he makes these comments and says, look, the grassroots are asking these questions. Because don't forget one thing, a political party is accountable to everybody, including those in the grassroots. Because NDC is a grassroots party. They have most of their members all across the country. So if they are asking, account to us how we fared, account to us your leadership, account to us how you have conducted the affairs of the party, I will be giving the money for the last 4 years. And then you suggest the man to barrage of insults. I don't get it. But my brother Chunia rightly put it out there. He said people are just being fanatics. We love President John Mahama. And so they will not even subject what the man is saying to any critical analysis. But rather they will just insult the man and run him down. But I don't find anything wrong what he has said, what the cadres even themselves said. If you look at the cadres statement, they were very clear. They said that, look, let me get what they said.
What Dana Budakwi said about the horse with clay feet.
Yes. What have they said wrong? They said they want to provide MPP, okay, with a stiff opposition. Okay, they want a renewal and a reinvigoration of their party to provide opposition that at the end of the day, 2024, they can win the elections. Which party doesn't want to win the elections? Party is put together with a common zeal and a common aim to win general elections. That is what the party is meant for, to change policy. Okay? Now, if cadres are there and they say, well, let us reinvigorate our party. Let's put a party together. Let's make sure that the grassroots, which is now probably going off the stream, people are hijacking the party. Let's make sure that what is wrong about what the man said. But you see, that is how politics is. Sometimes most people will not subject the message to analysis. What they will do is that they will rather insult, and after insulting you, then everything is clouded. Everything is clouded. But to me, if NDC they want to go this way, no problem. At the end of the day, Ghanaians are seeing what is going on. It's also the president is focused on doing whatever he's doing.
But there's something we need to also pay attention to. The subculture, if you like, of young people in a party. For me, that's a bigger concern. It does appear that we have a generation that has no respect for elders and superior wisdom. And they can hide under Facebook or whatever it is and insult. But the party must have a responsibility to check that, isn't it?
So I'm saying you are 100% right.
People want to criticize the president.
You see,
and they feel to be effective in criticizing the president is to insult him.
You see, something you are right. And I'm very worried about that kind of trend and that behavior. You know, it started not too long. And you realize that when it started in this country, unfortunately, the people who started those kind of behaviors were rewarded with the ministerial, deputy ministerial positions in this country. Along the line, you will see that those people have reformed their ways. They've departed from that kind of insult trajectory. They've changed. You see, I don't see why you cannot critique somebody. Something. We have sat here, I've sat on different networks. Have you ever seen me insult President Mahama before?
Not sure.
Yes. Because I can make my point and go.
Even right now, you had said His Excellency President Mahama.
Yes.
I know MPP people who will hate you for even saying President Mahama. They think you shouldn't say president.
Once the president, always a president.
Meanwhile, they are watching CNN every day.
Once the president, always a president.
And they hear for all American president, they call
the president, always a president. We see, let us give respect where it is due.
And some of them will deliberately say Mr. Mahama. To say that is the denigrate.
Well, you see, Samson. Let the point make clear.
Right.
The fact that we belong to two different opposing sides doesn't make us enemies.
Okay.
So any sitting here is an NDC, I'm MPP. It doesn't make us enemies.
Right.
It's about different divergent views with a thinking to develop the country through different approaches, through different channels.
Okay, let me bring in.
You understand?
Let me bring in Professor Bochi here. And Professor Bochi, having followed what is happening in the NDC, what sort of sin is it that the cadres, including Dana Budakwi, who said that the NDC is now a huge elephant standing on clay feet. What sin did they commit for asking for accountability among others? And how should they be treated?
Well, Samson, first of all, there are a number of good things that can be done badly sometimes. And I think the challenges of the NDC sometimes are reflected in good intentions that are badly expressed. As sometimes said, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So it does seem to me that there is a general understanding among the rank and file of the party that something ought to change. But it seems the venue and the platform that were used to express those did not necessarily go down well with some members of the party. But in order to understand this, let's put things in context. And I'll just say that the problems of the party, I would divide them into 4 key areas of historical, structural, ideological, and what I call peculiar dynamics. Now, among the historical problems, the formation of the party itself reflects its own dynamic. There are those who think of themselves as the owners of the party, and then they see others as newcomers. There are those who were with the PNDC in the trenches, and the NDC was formed, and they saw themselves as owners of this party, and then some people were latter-day saints, so to speak. That dynamic hasn't left the party. It is still there. And it's reflected sometimes in comments of people who think that others do not have not only the moral wherewithal, but do not have the legitimacy in stakes to argue and speak the way some members or owners of the party or those who see themselves as owners are. So the tension between owners and, new members, those things are there. And then you have the issue of factions. Unfortunately, the NDC has suffered the issue of factions. Once you have some people, claiming allegiance to one faction or the other. So you've had the Mills, the late President Mills, the late President Rawlings, and then the Mahama. So you've had, people who owe allegiances to these personalities, and some are open about them, others are more subtle about them. Factions divide and destroy parties. And so that's a major issue, the issue of factions and allegiances. Then the third issue under historical is the issue of the relationship with the founder prior to his death. The founder, just like in Nkrumah, does no wrong. So today, all the people who have strong allegiances to the CPP will see nothing wrong with ex-President Nkrumah. Founders tend to have a certain messianic attitude about them, as far as the party is concerned. And for these people, anyone who stands against them, that conflict will be resolved in favor of the founder. The NDC continues to experience the difficulty with the relationship with the founder, particularly in the latter days of his years before his untimely death. Then the second one I mentioned earlier was the structural problem. The NDC is a unitary party as opposed to a corporate party. Now, this distinction I make comparing the two parties of the NDC and the NPP. The NDC, which traces its roots, for example, to the CPP was formed by Nkrumah. The NDC itself was formed by Jerry Rawlings, so to speak. It was a party that was founded around Jerry Rawlings, and I think people don't dispute the fact that he's the founder. So it wasn't formed by him, but it was founded around him. The NPP, just as it started in the Dankwa Buzia days of the UGCC, it was formed by a group of peers. And so there was a recognition that nobody really owned the party. Now, these two parties tend to come with different dynamics. If you have a party which is founded around one person or a founder who lived until recently, then the founder's role, the founder's powers, the founder's authority, and people who stand in opposition to the founder, all these dynamics tend to challenge the party and the party's ways of doing things. And so in the case of the NDC, you have the founder's role, you have the Council of Elders, and then you have these various constituencies of people owing allegiances to different people, all creating factional difficulties that the party continues to have to deal with. Then the fourth one I mentioned was the question of ideological. The NDC at the moment, there are some people who think too much is given to the grassroots. There are others who think we are losing our grip of the grassroots, and the party is being hijacked and is hanging in there and is not really linking and connecting to its base. Until you have this addressed, you're going to have a problem, because politics is about numbers. And any constituency lost represents a weakness for the party. And so when you have the grassroots that are disconnected from the party, actual or perceived, when you have some people thinking that the moderates, who are the new members of the party, as it were, giving the party a new coloration, and the party is beginning to lose its way, then you have some of the difficulties and the tendencies that you had recently of having a major meeting going on in Ho, and then you have simultaneously an accountability meeting going on somewhere else. And then, the question of whether it's proper, the timing, whether it undermines the party's viability, whether that can be exploited by an opposing party, all these difficulties come in that have to be dealt with.
Why should there be a problem? Why should there be a problem with that? And Dr. Kumbo says the party is founded on the principles of the Constitution, and if you depart from what the Constitution enjoins a political party to do, then you cannot exist. So it's their fundamental human rights to be able to have the rights to express themselves and to association and whatever. He says that they wrote to invite him as cadre, and he made a decision that he will go to that platform rather than go to Ho, because he was going to Ho as an elder of the council. And there were other elders of the council he believed would even do better than he being there. So it was okay, or they were just going to duplicate themselves. So he decided, let me honor these people. And they had even given me their invitation before you also invited me. So what's the problem? The organizers issued a statement and said, our event chairperson, Keida Danabudakwi, our moderator, Fritz Bafo, and 3 speakers, Kedes Guzitano, Ibi Bright, and Ben Kumbo, were selected not only for their capacity to articulate the current concerns of ordinary party members, but also for their history of work and sacrifice for the NDC, a history which we believe sets them up as role models for young party members. We are extremely grateful to them for the clarity and positivity that they brought to the issues the forum discussed. Our 4th panelist, Keida Hudu Yaya, was unable to participate because of a family tragedy that compelled him to be in Tamale that weekend. Our condolences and solidarity go out to him. What's wrong to make the choice?
Dr. Kumbo is a fine politician. He's a statesman. He's a respectable member of our society, and I think we all know him for who he is. Few can really doubt Dr. Kumbo's good intentions in doing whatever he does. I think the issue, and I suspect that he found himself in a rock, between a rock and a hard place. The problem is not whether or not any meeting can be held. The problem is the timing. The problem is the optics. If you have one meeting demanding accountability, and then you have another meeting doing an introspection into what went wrong and how do we chart a way forward, the two can be synchronized depending on how you look at it.
Exactly.
But also depending on the questions that arose at the accountability meeting, the two can be seen to be in opposition and one not necessarily supporting the other.
Exactly.
I suspect Dr. Kumbo may have found himself in a difficult place when he received the invitation. If he doesn't honor it, it's a rejection of the grassroots of a sort. It creates a sense of rejection of the grassroots. And the grassroots would interpret it as such. If he honors it as he did, it could be interpreted by the other side. I'm talking about by the meeting going on in Ho as having joined a meeting which appears not to be supportive of the public cause that was going on in Ho. So you invariably had a difficulty of timing. If the Kedes meeting had come a day before or a day after the whole meeting, this conversation probably would have taken place.
It may have taken place. This conversation, Professor Bochi, this conversation still may have taken place because the gravamen of their concern is that you don't say the things you guys went to say at that platform in public, particularly because you are elders. You must talk in the closet.
That's correct. That's correct. But I'm just saying the gravity of the conversation in terms of the clash, in terms of the timing, in terms of the symbolism, that actually has even overshadowed the actual questions. Because the actual questions, like you said, if I want to tell you something I'm not happy with you about, I can choose to call you out publicly, which would be to embarrass you, or I can choose to do it privately, quietly somewhere, which would be to focus on what you've done I'm not happy about. And that's why I indicated that the optics and the symbolism and the character of the questions that came there obviously were those that people are challenging. But the last point I was making about the peculiar dynamics of the NDC, which also is one of its challenges, is the fact that the NDC is the only party with a former president who was a candidate in an election that they lost recently. And it's the only party with a former president who is still in the running, who qualifies, is eligible, and therefore potentially may. The ambition of running again, this leverage is a threat. The leverage of being a former president with the capacity to stand again, with the influence that he exerts, with the prospect of marketing, and with all the other dynamics that makes him a front runner. For those who want to stand, that is a threat. And
particularly the dynamic, Professor Bochi, particularly the dynamic that those who claim they have a horse standing or an elephant standing on a clay feet are wrong, because he led a campaign that has given us a parliament we have not had before.
Exactly.
Right. It depends on where you stand. That will determine whether you consider your soil clay or otherwise. And the point I'm making is, for those who feel the prospect of standing again, his leverage threats, and that leverage for them would represent, in their opinion, a clay soil because they've estimated that the recent election was lost. But you brought in a different dynamic that indeed, even though he lost the election, the parliament that we have at the moment is unprecedented in the annals of Ghana's history. The most important point is this. One can look at the pros and cons of his candidature, but the most important characteristic feature of all that's happening now is that they represent early salvos of 2024. A lot of these things that are happening today, people just can't declare them openly, but people are making projections into 2024, and they are throwing salvos with a view to seeing the extent to which they can demoralize the side against which those salvos are thrown. And I think it's important for us to remember this. But the last point I just want to make before I end here is that conflicts, as someone mentioned earlier, one of the panelists mentioned earlier, is inevitable in politics. What is not inevitable is explosive conflicts. The NPP has gone through this before. Some people actually even lost their membership of the NPP, but the party stood. Disunity is the stuff of which defeat is made in politics. And so if you handle your conflict publicly, as it's ongoing at the moment, and if the conflict appears vituperative and is going out of control, there's a danger that some of these factions or the perceived factions may become perpetualized. And if that happens, you have a real problem in terms of how you're shot at political power. So I think it's imperative the NDC tries to resolve a lot of their conflicts, particularly quietly, so that the media doesn't get played out in the media doing it.
Right, and yes, we can terminate this discussion here. But let me bring in briefly, and I'm going to come to all of you for just a minute to tell me what you think about the NDC's decision to boycott the IPAC meeting organized by the Electoral Commission. But Professor Butch, I wanted you to address the issue of the subculture of attacking personalities, even by younger people, and the expression I used earlier, I said for want of a better expression, I meant it. People who are not even qualified to carry the man's books, so to speak, are questioning his PhD. What can be done about that?
So we've lost decorum, not only in our politics, but in our public square generally. We've lost decorum in our public space, and there is no sense of civility and deference. There is no sense of respect and comportment. People have lost their sense. If you belong to WhatsApp groups, you can tell the extent to which people basically just have no sense of civility and have no sense of maturity. And sometimes you just don't engage because you basically just think that these people are not to your, they are dragging you to the mat. You just don't want to play according to that rule. So we've lost our sense of public comportment. And it's in that light that I see what's happening today. There's no sense of respect. Now, something happened. I'm sure you remember this. We all saw it on CNN. Something happened sometime in the US when somebody called the former President Barack Obama by a certain name. And very quickly, the late Senator McCain, who was then standing for the candidature of the Republican Party, very quickly just seized the microphone and rejected that insult or that lack of respect for the former president, and basically restored integrity, restored civility, and restored maturity, and insisted that he was not going to be a part of that conversation. We need that. We need people. We need people in whose defense bad things are said to publicly say, we reject this. This is not who we are. This is not the level of our immaturity. This is not a sense of culture and comportment, and I reject this. I support the position in terms of the content, but I reject how it was articulated.
And this is happening. This is happening in the parties. This is happening in the parties, and in the parties, the young people feel it is normal because the elderly are also doing the same. And this is a danger that I think all of us must be concerned. You have Gary here, and you listen to the way Gary spoke. Spoke like a nation promoting patriots, irrespective of the fact that they disagree here on this table. he is not, you know, insulting or seeking to take advantage of that to attack anybody. All right, so now let me end with this, just 1 minute. Tell me, what do you make of the NDC boycotting the IPAC meeting to review the 2020 elections? Yes, Professor Abochi, start with you.
Yes. Right. Okay. Unfortunately, I think it's regrettable, if you ask me. I think the party is still going through the pains and the disappointments of the loss, and ultimately the loss of the electoral petition in the Supreme Court. I suspect it seems the party is still going through that, which is not unusual. It's not unusual for parties having gone through some loss, you know, whether they agree with the loss or otherwise, having gone through some loss, for the party not to accept the post-electoral processes. And indeed, this is not the first time. The NDC is not the first party to do this. The NPP has boycotted so many things in the past when they were not happy with certain decisions of the Electoral Commission, or they were not happy with certain electoral outcomes all the way from the 90s, maybe to now. So it's important that we put this in context. It's not the NDC's doing per se. But from the standpoint of someone who is in constitutional law, from the standpoint of constitutional law, we've lost the quality of the feedback is important. The stakeholders' critical input and feedback is important for us to be able to ensure that the next level of the electoral process, benefits from these and is of a much more qualitative level than currently what we have. So their failure to participate or their refusal to participate deprives the process of that level of quality that otherwise I would have wished for. Okay. But it also means that the Electoral Commission must begin also, must also do some introspection on how it engages the parties post-elections, because every election will come with some loss. So how do we deal with parties who lose elections and ensure that somehow we're able to close ranks and come together so that they can deal with these processes instead of the division?
Now, Suleimana, let's hear you on this. The NDC's, one of the deputy secretaries, Otokuno, Peter Buama Otokuno, says that the NDC has thoroughly examined the dubious role the Jean Mensah-led Electoral Commission played in the rigging of the 2020 general elections. Moving forward, the party shall review its working relationship with the electoral management body and take appropriate steps to forestall the rigging of any future elections in the country. This is where he began and said they don't think that they are needed at that IPAC meeting, and they are not going because this Electoral Commission has been working against it.
Well, Samson, to start from where Otukuno, what he said, I think if we are to take that statement, it reaffirms my position that perhaps the party could do better. Because if, as a political party that has contested elections since 1992, under different leadership of the Electoral Commission, and today we are being told that the EC rigged the elections and that the party is going to take steps to ensure that such things are forestalled in the future. The understanding one gets is that the party could have taken certain steps to forestall whatever they say had happened in the last election. So the question then is, why didn't they take it? Is it that 2012, 2016, 2020, they still couldn't know what to do? But on the IPAC, yes, I can understand that the party may still be very angry. We, those sitting, on the fence or outside, really don't know what they know, except that they keep telling us that they have figures that suggest that they won and their victory was declared for another party. I think that it is important, as I said earlier, that the party comes out with whatever they have, so that if it turns out to be the reality, we would all endorse this. I think that we all want a united country. We want elections that are credible. I think the Electoral Commission, in the management of the last election, certainly there were issues. Those of us in civil society felt that previous ECs, if I may put it that way, engaged more, engaged better. IPAC, was much more stronger. Under the current leadership, we heard about, IPAC decisions having to be voted on as against previously, when IPAC decisions was really about consensus, arriving at consensus, and so on and so forth. So absolutely there were challenges with the management of the last elections. And I believe that as stakeholders, and of course political parties are the number one stakeholders in the electoral process. I think that as stakeholders, if a problem has been identified with the electoral management body, with the institution that is charged with managing our elections, the approach to use is to go through the relevant mechanisms to reform and strengthen that institution, rather than saying because you are frustrated with whatever they did, you are taking actions that would further undermine that institution.
Thank you, Sulemana.
If people have a by-election today, it is the CAEC that is going to manage it. Will the NDC say because they are not happy with it, they wouldn't put up a candidate?
Thank you, Sulemana. And let me come to Suhini now. Otokuno says, it is the considered view of the NDC that the current leadership of the Electoral Commission, who supervised the manipulation of the 2020 general elections and the stolen verdicts that resulted from same, lack the integrity, credibility, and impartiality to lead any such discussions or review of the very elections they rigged.
Yeah, Samson, if you permit me, I will make some few remarks.
Sorry, what I just said is actually Johnson Dunketia, who issued a statement and said that.
Yes. You see, earlier when I spoke about what was happening in the NDC, I talked about the forces, the different forces that seem to be creating noise and making it difficult for us to understand each other. And in subsequent submissions, especially in the submission of Professor Abochi, which I largely agree with, you will notice that it is made to seem like the platform that was created for the cadres was on behalf of the grassroots. But it will also seem, if you watch our party platforms, you know, from the constituencies to the branch, that it is the same grassroots that seem to be misunderstanding some of the, you know, things that were done on that platform, especially because of the associations I spoke of. So if you associate with the wrong people, your message will be clouded and misunderstood and will result in attacks that you should not have been subjected to. So that is why it is important.
I am associated with the wrong people.
No, I'm not. You see, clearly, like I said, I didn't want to mention names. And from my earlier submission, I've said that those people who want that genuine conversation to take place, that will lead to the party growth, must be wary of associating, either using people who are projecting what they are doing or spokespersons or even organizing platforms. They must be wary of those who have ulterior motives and who are bent on sabotaging and denigrating certain people in the party. They must be wary of associating with them.
Boycotts.
Just as we must also be wary of those who want to hide their inefficiencies under the guise of loving President
to the boycott. 1 minute.
Because
how long will
I want to disappoint you, please, if you indulge me.
We have very little time.
If you indulge me,
we have a very important issue to
I know. I am disappointed that we are having less than an hour to deal with that subject because I'm very passionate about it. But it's also important that I repeat the point that you made about the fact that the NDC's showing in the 2020 general elections has been the best so far, I think, that any political party has, you know, done after losing an election and going into the second election. It's the best so far.
The boycott.
So it is going to be very difficult for anybody to suggest that we didn't do things that well. We can always improve as a party, and that is why the conversation must lead towards you know, the growth of the party.
Some 30 seconds.
Now,
how long will this boycott be?
On the boycott, I agree with the general secretary of the party when he says that it is quite ironic for the NDC to sit around the table with a group of people that we have totally lost confidence in, a group of people we believe deliberately, you know, manipulated or, you know, facilitated the manipulation.
The evidence of which you are not showing.
The general election.
The evidence of which you are not showing.
That is also
the evidence of which you won't even show in the courtroom.
See, again, and it's because we do not have time. You see, there is a difference between the court case and the processes of 2013 petition and the 2020. So if you are doing that comparison, sometimes you get it wrong. The NDC went to court in 2020 seeking different things and working also under different guidelines. So you cannot expect them to do the same things that the MPP did in 2013.
Eventually, you have to go to the Eventually, you have to go to the IPAC.
I mean, as a party, obviously, we will focus on making sure that we get some electoral reforms, being done or carried out before the next election. So, however, we will do that. When we are done with the internal conversations, that will lead to the strengthening of the party. We will adopt an approach that will lead to the necessary reforms that will make it impossible for even Nana Akufo-Addo to rig an election for himself if he is the electoral commissioner, or to rig for Dr. Baumia.
Thank you. And here we are, an election that's been manipulated, is being rigged, is an election that you had your best ever. That's what you just said.
That is the irony.
Okay,
that is the irony.
What do you think about the boycott?
That is the irony. You see, my brother Suhini is made it very clear that this is their best election so far.
Our best showing so far.
Yes, to the extent
not just the NDC.
Yes, to the extent that this is the first time
performed that well.
This is the first time
in the second round.
Wait a minute. This is the first time we have had MPs being at par 137, 137 with one independent. It tells you how the election was close. Now you are being told that the election was rigged in favor of
rigged.
Rigged in favor of
could have been better.
If it was rigged, how did you get 137, 137
Our performance could have been better if it were not rigged.
So let me make the point very clear. The election was not rigged. This election was fought. This election was conducted by the EC in a fair, transparent manner. Nobody came, even in the petition, to come and tell the court that you were not allowed to vote. Nobody came in the petition that you were not allowed to do vote counting, that there was no declaration. Okay, even in Techiman South, that they said there were no declarations to Techiman South. Now they went there to inspect pin sheet and collation papers. Techiman South, just a few days ago. Okay, so sometimes let's be very fair to our listeners. This election that we are going into, it is painful to lose elections.
They're isolated issues. Anything is possible, particularly when you are producing. You are the one in charge of producing documents, particularly to a court. You can do anything with the documents and present whatever it is. You cannot avoid also the fact that we are talking about situations where we say isolated, but unprecedented, that 4 or 5 lives have been lost. So that's not.
Well, if you are talking about the Miley, the unfortunate incident about people being hurt
what
and
led
death,
to them? That's a question.
That is an issue for police to investigate and come and tell us why, in a mere counting and collation, people could even go and and lose their lives. That's a matter for another discussion. It's a criminal matter that the police must deal with it. But you see, you cannot say that the election was rigged. The election was fought. It was free, fair, transparent. The EU report has come out, and you have read the report. It was fought free and fair. So what I think NDC, you see, it's painful to lose elections. You see, but when you lose elections, even court case, when you lose, it's also painful. But you see, if you go to court without any evidence, the court cannot help you.
Okay.
The court cannot help you. Okay. NDC, if you are saying that you are going to boycott this IPAC meeting or whatever it is, I think it's unfortunate. I think you reconsider and go there, make your case to improve the electoral system, so that by and large, we all know that IPAC is an avenue for electoral system improvement in this country. So please, I will urge all of you to go there to make a case before the Mensa, because if not, you are going to tell us that then you will not take part in the election again. Because there's the same body that will conduct the election 2024.
Okay. Okay? All right. Thank you very much. And I think we must admit right at this point that in the scale of things, maybe the next topic may be even the most important that we have to discuss. Therefore, we must prepare and plan well to return to this table with Suhini, with Sulemana, Prosabochi, and Kojo Ponkroma to deal with that subject matter of the broadcasting bill. I read a few messages and then we take a break. Saint says that I can't believe myself, but that I am agreeing with Suhini, but that is the case. I agree with him that we have messed up the education sector. I, however, believe in the ability of the minister to turn things around. I hope I'm not proving wrong,
he wants pictures.
like in the Galamsey situation. Baba, chairman in Tamale, says that the president has been so magnanimous by giving young people the opportunity to serve our beloved country, Ghana. It is my hope that these people will eschew arrogance in their call to duty. Congratulations to Fatima Abubakar. Ransford Akoto says, who does the ministry grant licenses for prospecting in the forest reserves in the first place? If they do not intend to grant a license for mining, if it is a forest reserve, such activity should not be permitted. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile we put Ghana